Sorry.
Yeah, that's
All
all
right,
right.
let's start over because
Yeah.
cool music is going to come in right here. Here's the idea. People telling the stories that made them who they are today. Their secret backstory. When people hear someone else's story, it gives them the faith that things can work out for them as well. My name is Mark St. Jean. The podcast is called Secret Backstory. Thanks for coming on, Tom. I appreciate having you here.
Great to be here.
I've known you for a little while. We met again at a club down on Block Island, which we got to play a couple tunes together, and that's how we were first introduced. And so again, and before I forgot to press record, I had asked you when you started doing the guitar tech thing and how you got involved. And I mean, where do you fill the application out to go tour?
Yeah, right. So I'd always kind of dabbled in guitar repair and amp repair. And obviously, years of, playing on my own bands and traveling the country, my own bands. You make a lot of friends along the way. The way that I got interested in kind of doing the crew life thing is my uncle was actually a professional touring rigger. We got to work with some little bands like Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney, Journey.
Wow.
So he when I was a teenager, he invited me backstage to this little festival in upstate New York called Woodstock. So I got to watch this pretty insane festival from stage left. The pinnacle moment of before everything started burning to the ground,
right?
Was when Limp Bizkit played and Fred Durst on that piece of plywood. I actually got to watch that from backstage in real life.
Wow.
Prior to
and you
that,
were how old at that point?
I was 13, maybe.
Wow.
Somewhere around 13, 14. So being that young and kind of now realizing that, with concerts and everything else, there's a whole community of people that make these events happen. Well, that's pretty neat, and I kind of just, that always stuck with me, throughout the years. And then, after I had gotten out of being, doing the diesel stuff, I had hurt my arm pretty bad, and basically got told I could never do that career ever again. So I got this phone call one day from a buddy that had known me through the music industry and said, "Hey man, I know you dabble with guitars and stuff like that. One of the bands I tour with, they just fired their guitar technician, and I know you have a ton of experience doing this stuff. Would you be interested in coming out on the road?" And I went, "Yeah, you know what? I'll give it a go. Why not? And what do I got to lose?"
What year was this about?
I was like 2017-ish, somewhere around there.
All right.
So I was, and so I was like, all right, I'll give it a whirl. And it was kind of like, all right, I kind of found my niche, I guess, in life.
And what band was that you went on the road with?
So I went on with this band called Saving Abel. And those guys, kind of taught me the ways of the road, if you would, in that aspect of being a crew guy. And fortunately, those guys, had a bunch of gear, a bunch of guitars, and a lot of guitar changes and guitar maintenance that needed to be done. So I was able to really kind of hone some skills in on that and build off of that. But working for those guys opened up a bunch of other opportunities to me. I know I probably wouldn't have had. There's the one thing I learned about being in the touring community is there's about probably 800 to 1,000 people worldwide that really make all these shows happen. So like a lot of the guys from the Iron Maiden crew are also on the Ghost crew, stuff like that. So a lot of these bands rotate crew members, so it's
because you guys know how to do it, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a lot of guys that do that. So which was neat for me because it gave me the opportunity to go out and work for some of the biggest names in the current rock charts and heavy metal stuff. So that's kind of that's how I got into it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's how I got into that though. But it was neat.
I'm curious. Never being backstage at a show like that, you see guys coming out And I've seen you post pictures of yourself, walking on stage handing the guy, his next guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, is there like, Ralph broke a string and here's the guitar. I need it back right now. I mean, is there a lot of pressure like that?
So funny story. I have a good one that goes with that. I was working for this band called Pop Evil. And we were playing in Canada, doing this big outdoor festival with Theory of a Dead Man. And I want to say it was maybe 12,000 people in attendance. And we flew in for the show. So when we do a fly date, we don't have our big vaults of guitars and stuff like that. It's kind of, a couple of
minimum.
Yeah, very minimum. So our lead guitar player uses Floyd Roses for his for on all of his guitars.
Right.
And
what is a Floyd Rose for those who don't know?
So it's a floating tremolo system, very common with the 80s guitar players. They have a big springs on the back, and Van Halen is synonymous for using a Floyd Rose.
And it has a locking nut on the top of the guitar.
Yeah, you can take the strings, you can take the whammy bar, dive it all the way down, and it'll stay in tune. And if you don't have the bridge, what they call pinning the bridge, if you don't have it pinned and you break a guitar string, well, the whole guitar goes out of tune because it works on a whole balancing act. And so Nick was playing a solo, and I heard in my in-ears the whole guitar go out of tune. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and he's holding the guitar, and he's pointing at it. And I was like, oh, shit. And he blew a guitar string. It was fortunate, it was at the end of the song. And the next song he was playing was in a different tuning with another guitar. So I hand him off the next guitar, and he's like, well, he uses these things called a Digitech drop pedal. Okay. So you can change tunings with this pedal to kind of make your way through certain songs. Well, it just happened to be the guitar he needed for the next song had to be the guitar that he broke the string on. So I had one song to restring either the entire guitar or replace the one string that broke. Now, when we flew in for this gig, so the stagehands had taken all the guitar cases and put them in a semi-trailer about 100 yards away from the stage. So at that point, I'd only had, just because it was a short set, couple of songs, didn't need to change strings that day. The only thing I had on my work box was my tuner. So I went, well, shit. So I had to do this mad dash to the semi truck where all of our cases were, find the pack of strings, run all the way back, and put some new strings on this guitar with about 3 minutes and 45 seconds to do it and make sure it was perfectly in tune.
Wow.
To say the least, that was my second gig I ever did with Pop Evil.
Really?
I was like, well, let's see here. Let's let's see how this works out. I'm like, well, I'm either going to get fired or they're going to keep me.
What? But you pulled it off though, right?
Oh, well, we pulled it off. I came running over, and I had the guitar in my hand, and I looked at him, he looked at me, and this look in his face was, holy shit, he did it. I handed him the guitar. I said, all right, man. I go, it's got all brand new strings on it, all stretched out, ready to go. Let's do this. We got 3 songs left. Let's kick some ass. He kind of looked at me like, what the hell just happened? And they went out, finished the set. Guitar stayed perfectly in tune, and no one ever knew. And so there's times like that, but that's how that goes. So kind of interesting that you brought that up. But yeah, that was and nothing like having it happen in front of about 12,000 people,
Right. Of
no
course,
pressure.
Nobody knows your name when the 12,000 people are there, but
yeah,
it's like, going to shows. I always like watching the guys who are setting up, like in between bands.
Oh yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of pressure to get it done so the next band can get on and so forth. And so when there's multiple bands, are you like sharing duties with multiple bands, or is it your band and then you're out?
So sometimes depends on the gig. We just did I for those who don't know, I tour primarily the band called In This Moment, and I also work for a band called Bad Wolves, and we were both doing the same day at the same festival in Daytona, Rockville, so I pulled double duty that day. So it depends on who I'm out on tour with.
Okay.
I've also when I worked for the band Jinjer, one of the bands that was our support band, Suicide Silence, I was pulling double duty with them in between their old guitar technician and the guy that they brought in to, kind of relieve the rest of the tour.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes, it that happens. I know when the European tour I'll be going on later this year, I'll be pulling double duty, doing the same, very similar. I'll be working for two bands at the same time.
Is that within this moment?
No, I'll be out with Suicide Silence later on in the year, going over to Europe again. I'm actually going out with them in next week. I'm going to Europe. I'm leaving Friday for Europe for a week. So we're doing all the big. We're opening for this little band called Metallica. I think that's the name of what they're called.
I've heard of them. I think.
Yeah, maybe. So
that's pretty cool. And now, do you hang out with their techs while you're off time?
So a lot of these guys, from being touring for the past few years, a lot of these other technicians have become very really good friends of mine. So yeah, it's nice to hang out and see some familiar faces. But so a lot of times, when we go to these big festivals, it's like batting practice. Hey, how you doing, man? I haven't seen you in forever. How's the wife and kids doing? Right. How are things? So which is really neat, But like I said,
what is your situation? Do you have a family? You're married?
I do. So I'm not married. I have my son and my daughter.
Okay.
So I'm very fortunate to have a great family back here at home where my daughter's old enough that she's unnested and doesn't live at home.
Okay.
I have full custody of my son actually.
Nice.
So he stays with his grandparents when I'm on tour.
Right.
So
and
very
then
fortunate.
Is your daughter or your son, are they into the music that you're working with?
Yes, so it's kind of funny. I always tell this, my son Kyle, he wears T-shirts of all the bands that I work for. Some of these bands he's heard of, some of he hasn't.
Right.
But he's in middle school. He's actually going into high school, and so his teachers will be like, "You listen to that band?" And he's like, "Guy, my fucking loser dad, works for this band." They're like, I mean, it's kind of funny, I'm like,
right. There's got to be a cool factor to having a dad that works with these bands, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So there's that. I mean, he thinks it's pretty neat what I do. I also think, if I'm home enough, I know over the pandemic, both my kids were kind of like, I think you need to find something else to do right now. Okay, Dad, you're driving us nuts. It's time to go back on the road.
Right. Yeah. And you were staying busy doing just guitar repairs at that point. I seem to recall.
I was very fortunate that during the pandemic, a lot of these bands and guitar players and everything else, even local bands, they all decided to write incredible music all at the same time with all that downtime that we had. Right. So we're going with that. A lot of guys would call me and say, "Hey, man, we're gonna record a record up in Boston or wherever, and make my guitar play good." And I was like, well, okay, and then it kind of snowballed from that. I was able to start my side business.
So that's a creative process. Then you pick it up and play it. You're a very talented guitar player. I've heard you before. You pick it up, you play it, and then you make decisions on how to make it better. Or
yeah, I mean, so these guys like hand me a guitar. I'm like, well, there's really nothing wrong with it. Okay, well, we'll set it up, to specs or whatever. How do you want it? And so a lot of it's kind of going, off feel and judgment, basically. I'll get guys that, they're bringing an amplifier into me and say, "Hey, man, I really want to use this amplifier on this record, but, it's sat in a basement for the last 15 years, make it right." So, you're sitting there kind of putting new capacitors in it, different tubes, doing some modifications on the wiring and everything else. So it's kind of, a lot of it's, knowing the player too.
Right.
I've had guys that have come in. I know that these guys are super shredders and they want their action pretty much as
low as can be.
Yeah, without it buzzing out. I know guys that are fantastic blues and slide players that want that action, this high off the fretboard. Right. So a lot of it's knowing the room, if you would.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, so that's really kept me busy over the pandemic was these incredible musicians from all over the world. I would get guys that would FedEx me or DHL me a guitar from friggin' China or whatever because they wanted
that is very cool.
which made, it was nice to have that, people trusted me to, with their prized possession, to have it put in a box and put on a boat or an airplane and sent overseas, and have me work on it so I could box it up and send it back to them. And hopefully by the time they got it, it was exactly what they wanted, because
right, it's hard to do a return at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so I kept very busy over the pandemic doing that. And again, when I'm home between tours, that's what I do. So it's
so you mentioned Europe, and
yep.
I'm curious, like Jinjer, for instance, they're
Yep.
a European band.
Yep.
Do you pick them up on the coast of California, in California, and walk with them across to Boston, and then they go with someone else, or do you fly over there and start with them? How does that happen?
So some of these bands, Jinjer is actually a very rare case. They're one of the first bands that I worked for, that they had a very skeleton European crew. By skeleton European crew, they had a guy who would help set up the stage, and they're very incredibly talented front of house guy, Alex, and he kind of oversees the operation of how they do. They all live in the Ukraine together, and so Alex
tough place to live
here,
right now.
Very. So they actually just got granted a humanitarian act. So they're actually out on the road right now, by the graces of the Ukrainian government, to help support and do humanitarian acts and return to Ukraine, kind of deal, which is really, so those guys are on this amazing mission right now to support their country and
bring some relief to the stress.
Yeah. So I mean, those guys, we were not to change the subject or the story quick, but for those that don't know, we were supposed to do a massive tour in early this year, supporting In This Moment at Slipknot.
Mm-hmm.
And within a week before we were supposed to start pre-production, the war in Ukraine broke out. And so 3 of the 4 members were still in Ukraine when that happened, and have been stuck there since.
Wow.
And those guys immediately did, utilize their knowledge and who they are, and kind of, I guess, I don't want to say the food chain, but who they are and as people, and their popularity, to start doing all these massive humanitarian acts for the people of Ukraine. Whether it had been taking their own personal money or tour earnings or record proceeds or anything like that, and turning that into generators, food, water, helping with shelter, clothing for people that were directly affected, by the nasty things that are going on over there. So I mean, It's kind of neat to see some of my friends, go from being these incredible musicians to this flipping of a light switch and becoming humanitarians and helping these people out. I mean, and it just goes to show a lot about a character of how these people actually are in real life, and how good of souls they are to do what they're doing. So they're able to go across Europe right now, and spread the news of actually what's going on in Ukraine, and what Putin's making it out to be, what the media is making it out to be, letting people know what's actually going on there and how people can help and whatnot. So the country is allowing them to go out on a humanitarian act and tour Europe currently right now, and
that's so awesome.
Raise funds and everything else to bring back to the country to help the people there. So going with that, we were talking about is so the way that works when they come to the United States. Again, it's a very skeleton crew. They have a guy over there who kind of runs the show and runs their front of house. So he's kind of like the 5th member of that band. So he comes over here with them, and here we have put on a very massive production. So we have an American LD, an American tour manager, American management, and I am their American guitar technician, which I didn't realize that Roman and Eugene did all of their own guitar tech stuff. So they're over in Europe, so they don't have a guitar tech over in Europe.
Wow. And, how do you pull that off when you break a string?
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. So I mean, they have a backup guitar. They broke a string. Roman, we change strings every day. that's always the way he does things. So he doesn't break strings.
Okay.
But if something goes wrong, these guys know enough of their own stuff how to kind of limp along through it and get it done and get the show finished. But when they came here, again, the bands and artists that I worked for, I'm used to grabbing guitars and doing these juggling acts and running off stage and whatnot. And these guys, the first few shows I did with them, these guys would take their guitars off and salute them to the crowd and kind of flop them down on the side and do their bow and everything else. And
right.
They're going to take their guitars off to do that. And here I am grabbing them quick and then off the stage. And these guys, kind of, where'd that come from? It took them a couple of shows and they're like, with their thick Ukrainian accents, they're like, bro, we're not used to this. Right. And I was like, oh, well,
service with a smile, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, being, having the caliber band that is to, being one of their guys, Eugene would say it all the time. He's like, Tom's our first real guitar technician. So these guys,
that's a nice statement to hear.
And it was, that made me feel really good. And then plus these guys are, music nerds and gear junkies like I am. So, right. Every day was a mission with me and Roman of the perfect guitar tone. So, we would sit there. You can go on my social media stuff and, you can see me swapping out pickups, changing, circuitry and amplifiers,
right.
all this crazy stuff, so we could get like the perfect guitar tone. One of the best stories I think I have about that is, I don't know if you know who Mike Shannon is, but Mike Shannon is from Jackson Guitars. He was the man. He was the man responsible for building the Randy Rhoads guitar.
Oh,
that's his design. That's his claim to fame. Mike Shannon is an awesome guy.
Are we talking about the V guitar or?
Yep. Yeah. The Randy Rhoads V. That's
right. Kind of the offset V's,
yeah,
right?
That's his baby. He is the man that came up with that. So I've gotten to meet Mike. Mike's a friend of mine. Just a hell of a builder. And Jackson Guitars was working on a signature guitar for Roman from Jinjer. And
nice.
So the last day of our American tour, they bring him in another prototype. After we all kind of went back and forth on specs for this guitar, they bring him this other one that they've made for him. That's supposed to be the perfect one.
So you're sitting in on this kind of, giving your 2 cents to what it needs to be.
Well, Roman was giving me the 2 cents of saying, kind of this is what I want, and kind of this is my tech tom. This is how he sets it up.
Okay.
This is where I want my pole pieces on the pickups and stuff. And so I'm talking to these guys and talking about the modifications I made on the prototype. They hand them the guitar that's now got the specs that we wanted. Everything's kind of relocated the right way. And Roman plays the guitar and he is like, looks at me and looks at these guys and he's like, well, let's restring it. Tom, set the guitar up how you do every day for me. All right. So
do your thing, right?
Do my thing. So I set it up, and we're sound checking. And Roman's got this hell of an ear as far as knowing what's tone and what he likes and what he doesn't. And he's looking at the pole pieces on one of the pickups, and he's sitting. He's like, we need to adjust these. And I'm sitting there, I'm like looking at like how is the other one is the one that we used this entire tour, the prototype. How it was set up, and it was maybe off by,
thousandth of an inch or something,
if that, and he could tell the difference. So I'm sitting there adjusting all these pole pieces on the pickup, and here I am talking to this guy who's a master builder for Jackson Guitars, and this legendary master builder, and they're all looking at me, looking at him, looking at me, and I'm like, man, and they're like, well, man knows what he wants, huh? And I'm like, I guess so, huh? And it's just kind of funny that I have these that incredible story that that I actually have a picture of it. I don't know if you want to, you can find it on my social media, my Instagram, I think.
I'll be talking to you after the interviews about some stuff, and we'll post all your social media stuff.
You can if you find this picture, it's we can do one of these. You can put it right here. I
can do that.
It's a picture of actually it's a really cool picture. As a guitar tech, it's kind of like the holy grail. So it's myself, Roman from Jinjer, and Mark from Suicide Silence, and Mike Shannon from Jackson
Guitars.
so it's Roman and the prototype that he toured with, the other guitar that Mike brought out for us, and then Mark from Suicide, who also has his guitar that Mike Shannon built for him as well, and then me, all in one picture. So it's the two artists I tech for,
right,
the man that built them,
right,
me, who repairs and maintains these things daily on tour. So
right.
it's kind of the holy grail if you're a guitar technician. That's kind of the, you're talking, you got the god, the grandfather, the children, the father, you know what I mean? And then the kids. So it's kind of cool. They're kind of cool pictures. So.
And 20 years from now, when the guitar nerds of the future are going back to great guitars that came out.
Yeah.
Tom will be in that picture with those.
That's right, man. That's right.
That is so cool.
Which is kind of cool. So, but
that's
yeah,
historical.
So, yeah. I mean, I was like, wow, all right. We didn't think anything at the time. We're like, let's all get a picture together with these guitars. This is awesome. Actually, I got a picture of it framed somewhere on my wall over here. So it's kind of cool that that's, and we all also say like, man, like 30 years from now, this picture is probably gonna be in Guitar World magazine or something like that.
Right.
So, but it's cool, man. Stuff like that. Like I said, the guys from Jinjer are just incredible people. Super talented, and just all around.
The drummer, I don't know the drummer's name, but the drummer, my God, he just blows my mind with the stuff he can do.
Oh yeah, I mean he's just something. He's about one of the coolest guys I've ever met in my life too. I mean he's so humble and just so chill that the whole band is like that. They're these are guys that they don't think anything of it. They go out and do their thing and they have a great time doing it, and they write some really good riffs. And Vlad is just one of those guys, man, that living on a tour bus with that guy, and it's just like we have these simple conversations about nothing kind of deal, and they're funny as hell. These guys are I like to play music. And I'm like, cool, man. I like to fix guitars. We're all in the same boat. Cool.
It just goes to show how important music is to the world, because the guitar nerds of the future will look back and Jinjer going out and just bringing relief to the stress that this war is bringing on. And will we ever know the truth about that? I don't know.
Exactly.
And all the wars previous, it's like Korean War, you hear 12 different versions of it. But one of the unusual things about you in this rock and roll world is you are doing all of this sober.
I am. So it's kind of cool, man. Over the years, as you've seen, probably witnessed it firsthand. There's having a good time, having a couple of beers, and there's Tom having a good time and having a couple of beers. And
I was there. I was there the afternoon. And I don't know if we should name the name of the club or not, but
we'll leave that one out.
Yeah, it was a Rhode Island place, and we had ridden down on the bikes to see the band, and when you came in, you went right to the bar. You had a tray of shots and walked right up and distributed shots, and not that was uncommon, because the band did that every break.
That's right, man.
Every break. Oh my God, I've had nights where I was really out of control with those guys. And then
big time.
Stu come over and hand me some, what was it? Jameson and Red Bull.
That's what the story that afternoon was. We'll leave the venue unnamed.
Right.
But I know when I got my bill, the next day when I saw my bill sober, I was actually blown away by the fact that I was allowed to drink 27 Jameson and Red Bulls.
Oh my God.
And and again, like any true alcoholic, I ended up in the hospital that night, and I'm lucky to be alive. Like any true alcoholic, I was sober for a short period, and went, you know what, I just won't drink whiskey anymore. I'll go to vodka. And
I've heard that. I've heard that many times. I've heard the brand is the issue. I don't drink Smirnoff anymore. I drink Grey Goose only.
That's right. And So I, like any alcoholic, I did that, and it was actually funny. So actually not funny, but sometime later, I was on tour, um, and from that incident, from that stems from that day, my stomach had never been right since.
Right.
And so I was on tour, and I kept having all these stomach issues. And when you're living on a tour bus having stomach issues, that's never fun for anybody. So,
It's a small place, right?
well, there's that, and the first rule of being on a tour bus is, there's you don't shit on a tour bus. So,
Right.
that's like rule number one, no number two. So the I'm not quite sure what the catalyst was. I know it was really hot one day, and my old tour manager came up with beer after we had done this huge outdoor venue. And it must have been 100 something degrees. So I got given this beer, and I chugged that thing. I mean, I was dying of thirst. I mean, I slammed that fucking beer and then slammed another one right after. Right. I still was thirsty. And man, I'll tell you what, I don't know if that beer was skunked or whatever it was, but I got back on my bus, and I was just sick as all hell from days afterwards. And the only thing I had was those two beers. And I mean, I was, puking my brains out, shitting my brains out, couldn't keep any fluids down.
Right.
And I was like, well, you know what? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that was like that moment that shifted my whole, everything clicked into place.
Right.
And at the time, the band that I worked for, the bass player was sober. And he had known my backstory, and then I had fought addiction for years. It was, it was, and then, so he kind of helped me along the way with that, kind of gave me the coaching, and, kind of helped me, get sober during that time, especially being on tour. So he helped me through all the struggles with that. And then, I came home from being on tour, and, it was one of those, I had that moment of the whole reality when I came home, that I'd been sober now for several months.
Right.
And it didn't even faze me that, I had to kind of backtrack to the date of that show and be like, oh, that's my sober anniversary. Oh, okay. Got it.
Right.
And, I think once I realized, me getting sober, it was like how when someone wants to quit smoking cigarettes, it's a lot of it's a mental thing too. If you don't want to quit smoking cigarettes,
you're not gonna.
You're not gonna.
Right. Right.
Up until that point, I think I finally hit a point in my life where I was done. And that was it. And once I kind of realized that I was actually done doing that, that whole fight that I had for all those years of trying to quit drinking, kind of, I was like, wow, if I really wanted to do it 3 or 4 years ago, at that time,
right. Was there attempts to quit prior?
I mean, yeah.
And was it outside forces that were making this decision for you, saying you need to quit?
Yeah. Well, I think there was a lot of that too. It was leading up to my inevitably me having my final drink. Prior to that, like that day that we were talking about, when you wake up.
And I want to talk more about that day, but go ahead.
Yeah. So when you wake up the next day in a hospital, and don't know how you got there, IVs in you and everything else.
Let me interrupt you for just a second, because the story I heard, and this was the next day, Sean called me up, and he said, he said, Tom died last night.
That's a true story. I did. Yeah.
And I was like, the cold feeling comes down. You're like, what? I mean, you're one of these guys when you first meet someone, you just know they're just full of positive, and they're just a good person, and you like hanging out with them,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the couple of gigs I got to hang out with you at were great, and we had a good time, and drinking was involved. So if you can, and you kind of went through that kind of quickly, but how did you end up at the hospital? What transpired?
So between that time, now the backstory that goes with this a little bit is, and again, at this time I was on pain medication. And I was on two different kinds of pain medications. It was like like an ibuprofen, like a high end ibuprofen,
Right.
and like a naproxen. And I had no idea. You know, the shame on the doctor for I guess prescribing this stuff to me because
Mm-hmm.
you know those two don't go together.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But what they so I tears your stomach up, and so I was prescribed that within a heavy duty stomach medication at the time. And what I didn't know is, I guess from my understanding, what the doctors told me at the hospital was in ibuprofen 800. The reason it says don't drink on ibuprofen 800. So shame on me for drinking like I was on that medication. I'm not
Right.
blaming, this is all me.
Right. Hear you.
The reason they tell you not to drink on ibuprofen, especially that dose of ibuprofen, is that it blocks the receptors in your liver from filtering alcohol.
Okay.
So now, when that morning I took all of my medication, my pain medication, before I went had Sunday fun day with the boys.
Right.
And so that's how I was able to drink so much alcohol. My liver wasn't even doing anything; it was kind of sitting there.
Wow.
It wasn't filtering any of the booze out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, so when you're not getting drunk, you're just having a good time. Getting a little bit of a buzz on, but not fall down hammered yet.
And you're thinking, I'm Superman. Let's have some more.
Let's keep going. And,
right.
Then later that night, me and my friends and my designated driver, who also happened to be my mother, which was fantastic.
Okay.
We were smart. We had a DD. That was the smart move.
Right.
So then we carried on with the boys, and we went over to Newport. And the last thing I remember was paying our bill over in Newport. After the Stu and Dave finished their set, and that was the last thing I remember. Right. And then I figured at that point, I remember, man, I only had a couple of beers here, but we had a 30-pack on the way over.
Right. Right.
So I was like, maybe things are starting to catch up. Maybe I just need something to eat. But what it was is my liver started working and went into shock. Trying to filter all of the day's alcohol through my body. So I woke up in the emergency room. My blood pressure was, my body was in shock.
Right.
I was dying. They actually called my family in. I got brought to the hospital from my house in an ambulance. To the point it was so bad that probably probably the middle of the night.
Who made the call to the ambulance?
So when my mom brought me home, she put me in my room, was going to leave, and then heard me throwing up. So now, like any good parent would,
right?
They would go in and make sure you're not on your back puking. And I wasn't puking any liquids up. I was puking up straight blood.
Wow.
So that's where the medication came in. That I was on all this pain medication for my shoulder and my stomach and everything else. And I had torn my stomach apart from all the booze and everything else, the medication that I was on. So she called the ambulance, and they were like, "Oh, geez, this guy's blood pressure is way down. He's going into shock. We got to go now." So they pumped my stomach. They gave me a bunch of fluids and stuff like that, to the point where they figured they would get me stable enough to basically bring the rest of my family into the hospital that night, so they could say goodbye to me, because they didn't think I was going to serve. They didn't think I was going to live through the night.
And you knew this at the time, that this is what was going on?
I had an idea of kind of what was going on. I was still fairly intoxicated at that point. I don't remember the ambulance ride. I don't remember. I remember the one thing I always will hold this is I remember being in the hospital and looking down at my hands and having IVs in me and trying to rip them out and stuff like that. And I was like, what the hell's going on? I remember looking over and seeing my son, who was still pretty young at the time, just kind of and then basically being like, your dad's gonna die, so you say so, and that stuck with me.
That's
so
intense.
there's that.
That's intense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I remember that's the last thing I remember of that. And then I remember waking up at my house the following day, kind of, looking
You
around
don't
my
even remember
room.
getting home?
I do not even remember getting home. Not even just a little bit. I remember waking up and being like, I had the bracelet on from the hospital, and I kind of looked around, and I thought it was all a dream, basically.
Right.
At that point, I figured I just had a bad fucking dream, and I looked down at my arm, and I was like, I have a bracelet from the hospital. I look around, and there's no bed sheets on my bed. I'm like, what the fuck happened? I'm like,
And
did
are
I
you
die?
still feeling like the alcohol at this point? Are you still drunk, hungover?
I'm really hungover.
Right.
I'm looking around for the Advil and the water and the Gatorade and stuff like that. And I'm like, huh. I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, wow, man. I wonder if I died last night. I'm laughing to myself about it. Little did I know really what happened. And and I remember looking at my phone and going, oh shit, I'm late for work. I got to get to work. So I throw on my clothes, getting ready to leave, and there's basically everyone that I know in my living room of my house.
Really? You walked out of your bedroom.
Oh yeah. My family, my friends, the guys that worked for me, all sitting in my living room in my kitchen, and I was like, "What's up?" They're like, "We got to talk," and I'm like, "Oh."
Oh, this is like, the TV movie intervention thing.
Oh yeah, you name it, man. And they're like, well, "We got to talk."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Well, I got to go to work," and they're like, "Work's canceled today. Sit your ass down." And I was like, "Well, shit. Okay, whatever you say." And here I am. At first I'm laughing about it. I was like, nothing bad, nothing that bad happened last night. And then they kind of handed me, the reports of what happened the night before, and they're like, "You're lucky you're even alive." And I'd followed up with the doctor, and he was the first thing. The first thing I ever say to you about, it was literally the one thing that kept your heart beating was all the Red Bull you had in your system.
No shit.
And I was like, wow, okay, man, that's fucking wild, like, wow. I was like, wow, man, all right. I was like, you know what, maybe it's time to change my life a little bit here. And, like I said, I mean, I was sober for a minute, about 6 months I was sober.
You were, okay.
So I was sober about 6 months. And then, I said, what's one cocktail gonna do? And
I can drink, but I'll drink within control.
That's it. I'll be smart about it this time. And then, that lasted for a little while. And, then I was like, oh, I'm buying a gallon of vodka every other day. Maybe, so, but it was, and again, being in this, doing what I do for a career now.
Right.
Fast forward to modern day.
Sure.
I'm going on, let's see here, this July 25th will be 3 years since I've, had a drink.
Congratulations. That's
thank
awesome.
You. And the being in this industry, the one thing I found out is it's way cooler to be the sober guy than to be the guy who's up at 6 a.m. still pounding beers and doing lines of cocaine.
Right.
So
which the fantasy when we're kids is being the guy up at 6 a.m. doing lines and drinking beer. That's right. That's the cool guy.
Yeah. And the things I've learned is that's not really the thing anymore. A lot of these bands, they don't want somebody who's doing that. A lot of these bands, a lot of bands, even nowadays, it's a lot of these guys are sober themselves. These guys battled addiction throughout the 80s and 90s, and have lived that life, have lost everything, rebuilt their careers, if you would.
Right.
Or still, you're just lucky to even be alive, or have lost friends because of that. Lord knows I have, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's, so it's kind of one of those things that, once upon a time, what used to be, after the show, you're loading your trailers or whatever, and you get on your tour bus, and, there's, drugs and alcohol waiting for you, is now, you get back into your bus, and it's like, hey man, here's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a cup of coffee. Like, let's talk about the glory days, and you're having an AA meeting instead.
Right.
Which is kind of cool, man. Some of these bands that I tour with, some of these guys, it's obviously their story to tell, not mine, but some of these bands that I tour with, I'm very fortunate that there's sober guys that are on these buses. And that's what we do. we'll have a great fucking show, you know, in front of a sold out fucking arena or, you know,
Which is
auditorium.
amazing. And you get to remember it.
Yeah. And then, yeah. And we get to go back to our tour bus. And one of the guitar players that I tech for, I think he's been sober for, I think 13 or 15 years now.
Okay.
And you know, that's what we do. You know, we get back to the tour bus after the show, and you know, we'll make a cup of coffee at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you know, we'll sit there and bullshit till 2 a.m. and kind of, you know, and you know, you don't realize what you're doing at the time, but it's one of those, you know, that's an AA meeting. It takes two to make a meeting, man. And
right.
you know, it's kind of cool. You know, you look around, you know, in the rock community now. I mean, you get these guys that were synonymous drinkers in the industry, Zach Wilds,
Right.
you know, and I mean, Zach's sober now, you know, doing the same thing that I'm doing. You know, 1 a.m. we're drinking coffee instead of pounding beers.
Sure.
You know, and it's kind of cool, man. It's a different thing, you know, and yeah, don't get me wrong. There are still bands that go out there, and that's what they do. They like to go out and have a good time, and that's their stick, man. I mean, whatever they want to do, you know, the people these are grown ass people, and if they want to have that drink or put that poison into their body, that's cool, man. Whatever that's, you know, I'm not their mom or you know their wife.
Right, you're not here to judge just because you've been through something, right?
That's it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, whatever, man. You know and it's funny because I'll go on these tours and they're like, yeah, I'll get hired in last minute to do a tour, and you know, these guys will have nothing but beer on the bus or whatever and water, you know, and I come on and they're like, oh shit, you know, we have to hide all the beer or whatever. I'm like, no.
Right.
Just because I don't drink anymore does not mean I'm a bad influence still, you know.
Right.
Like I'm like, oh man, like, you know, I was out with one of the bands that I toured, and we were out in Texas having a good time.
Right.
And I walk into the bar, sit down, I order what did I get? I think I got like a ginger beer, you know.
Okay, right.
And you know, and like something like that. I was like, hey, you know, let me get a what is it? I was like, it was like a ginger beer and like a splash of lime or whatever. And I was like, you know, let's go with that. I was like, but I think these guys sitting next to me, I was like, these guys want double shots of Jameson.
Right.
I was like, on my tab, and they're like, you know, and the bartender will come out, you know, hand me my drink, you know, my little mocktail or whatever.
Right.
And you know, and then these guys are sitting there like, oh wait, we didn't get shots. And I was like, oh no, I got them for you. And they're like, fuck Tom, you know.
Right.
I'm like, we got a day off tomorrow, gentlemen. We had a good show tonight. Drink up, you know. You know, next thing you know, I got to carry these guys back to the bus, and I'm like, sucks to suck, man. You know, I'm not, you know.
So 3 years, and do you find moments of temptation anymore, or is it so gone?
So gone, man. You know,
so
it's
gone.
It doesn't even bother me none. I mean, that's the kind of the point of that story that I just told was you know, at first, you know, when I first quit drinking and I was completely done with it, it was like relearning how to walk. You know, and going out, like coming home and playing gigs with my own band, you know, I mean, you know, my own band, we were known for being a drinking band as well.
Right.
You know, so it was one of those, you know, there was only a few bands in the, you know, in the area that could drink that much and stand in, you know. It was, you know, our two
and
bands,
you wore that badge with pride, I'm sure.
Oh, we well displayed that badge. I mean, it was one of those, you know, but you know, learning how to do that again without all that alcohol involved was pretty interesting.
Right.
And I mean, there were times I was like, man, I wonder if I can do this. And then you know, I got a few gigs in of doing it, and I was like, oh, all right. You know, then I'm watching like the videos on like YouTube and stuff like that, or you know, people would post videos and send videos and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, so that's what it sounds like to actually play that whole solo note for note without messing it up. Or all right, gotcha, you know, or you know, stuff like that. So it's kind of, you know, again, it's one of those, you know, relearning how to do all that.
Right.
Then kind of finding the confidence to you know, get in front of an audience without having alcohol or drugs on board it was a whole different experience for me. And you know, now that
I'm working on my first year here, and
congratulations.
Thank you. April 1st was the last time I drank a year ago.
Yeah.
And not that I made a decision on that day, but I just didn't feel like drinking anymore. So I didn't. And then I went and saw my friend's band playing at a local club, and I ordered a rum and coke just out of like, I'm in the bar. If I order a coke, the whole bar is going to stop talking and look at me and want to know why I'm not getting a rum and coke or something, you know? So I had 2 rum and cokes that night, and so that interrupted my first year. But I didn't. I regretted drinking them. And not that I got drunk, because I only had 2 drinks. But I was not. I didn't feel better after drinking them. You know what I mean? It didn't enhance my fun. It didn't do anything. And so I'm continuing down that road now. And not that this show is going to be an anti-drinking show. It's definitely not.
You know, I mean, you know, again, I mean, that's, I can tell you, you know, being in very similar shoes, you know, I mean, I remember the first time I walked into a bar and I was like, oh, I'll take a Coke. And they're like, with what? And I'm like, ice, you know, I'll take some ice in it. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, I mean, and it was so second nature to me to walk in and be like, oh, you know, I'll take, you know, a Jameson and Jinjer, or, you know, whatever, a Tito's and Coke or something along the lines of that. And it's like, well, what do you do? You know, but you're absolutely right though, man. I mean, it just happens, you know, like but it's that first 6 months to a year that really, you know, that's a lot, you know, it's, that's a huge milestone. You know, I'm very proud of you for doing that. It's, especially, you know, I mean, given the fact, you know, I mean, we have very similar friends and mutual friends, and, you know, it's, I mean, some guys can walk into a place and have 1 beer and with dinner and walk out. I can't do that. And I know that about myself. And, you know, I think of all the money I've wasted and spent, and, all for what? To get, you know, wake up the next day and, man, hope I didn't do something stupid or kill somebody, you know, it's
right. And it starts out in pursuit of a good time, or, you know, that's
right.
That's the idea.
Man. That's it. You know, I mean, you know, so it's one of those, I mean, you know, navigating life, you know, even doing like, you know, like what I do or what you do, without that need to go to that level to have a good time. You know, once I learned I'm still Tom, you know, and I'm still a terrible influence on people, you know, I will gladly get you drunk. I'll get you fall down drunk. You know what I mean? But I'll drive you home. You know, I mean, I'm not going to stop your good time. Don't stop your good time because I'm here.
Yeah, I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine who doesn't drink either, and I was talking about some of the other times in my life that I had given up and felt I was losing my personality, what I'm known for, doing these crazy things that I would do when I was drunk. And I don't do the crazy things anymore because I'm old and it hurts now. But,
that's how there you go.
You know, but so it's a process, and I think a lot of people take a couple of attempts at it, and you know, it's amazing that you're here. And I like I say, the day I got the news, I was like so bummed. Glad to hear that you know, we're still with us though, and able to make music. And I know you got. Are you still with Squelch doing the?
I am. We when I'm home from tour, we go do some gigs. You know, I know this summer we got a couple of gigs up in Maine that we're doing.
Nice.
You know, we're back up at Sunday River this winter.
Cool.
You know, doing, you know, we were supposed to do New Year's last year, and you know, because of COVID, you know, the week before canceled that. So we're doing some makeup dates for New Year's again this year. So this will be year number 3 attempt for doing New Year's up at Sunday River again.
Right.
So.
Oh, and let me thank you, by the way. I got to be rock and roll guy by making a phone call to you, and you got my friend Angie backstage out in
that's true. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, which was really cool. And she thought it was awesome, and she chickened out to go back and meet the band afterwards, she said, but said that you were great, and she was really happy to have met you. So thank you for doing that. Made me rock and roll too.
Hey man, not a problem. You know, that's what we're here for. You know, I'm just glad that you know, like I said, it's you know, it's been a journey, to say the least. You know,
everything
do I regret any of it? Absolutely not. I think where I sit today in my life, the good things, the bad things, you know, basically being declared dead, you know, has made me into who I am today. You know, it's given me a reason to, you know, be a better person,
Mm-hmm.
you know, be a better parent, you know, be a better friend to people too.
Right.
Because it's one of those, you know, at that time, if everything had stopped that day, that next morning, you know, that would have been it for me. You know what I
That's
mean?
a
And it's like,
mind-blowing thought, isn't it?
you know, and I'm like, wow, look at all the cool things that I've done since then, man. You know, like, you know, so I think of it in that aspect. I'm like, wow, well, that would have been a damn shame if, you know, I had let, you know, 27 Jameson and Red Bulls take my ass out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right,
so,
right. And I
I
mean,
mean,
look at the adventure you've been on since then.
that's insane. I mean, you
Is
know,
just incredible. I
yeah,
love I love looking at the social stuff, the pictures backstage.
yeah.
What I really like, I don't know why this is like my favorite photo, is the audience from behind the stage, and you can see the band from the back,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know you're out back with your your setup and your guitar on the.
Yeah,
It
man.
looks like a regular toolbox a mechanic would have.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
man.
it, such cool stuff. And you know, again, we'll list all this stuff. What is your social media stuff? Do you have like a
So,
Facebook?
yeah. All my social media is at Guitar Tech Tom. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Everything's all at Guitar Tech Tom.
At Guitar Tech Tom. All right. So go check that out. For there's literally 4 or 5 people listening to this right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully there'll be millions of people listening and you'll get lots of hits on your stuff. I can't thank you enough for coming on and doing this, Tom. You are my first interview.
Awesome. Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, it's awesome to see you again. And you know, hopefully I'll be able to catch one of your shows when you come around. And just thank you for sharing.
Always happy to, you know, talk rock and roll and sobriety and everything else. And
right.
You know, and congratulations to you. You know, keep fighting that good fight, man. You know,
thank you.
That's amazing, dude.
And you know, at this point, it's not even a fight. It's like just what I'm doing. I'm just not interested anymore. It got to that point.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy, man. How one day we all wake up and we're just like, huh.
I'm just not that person anymore.
No, I mean, you know,
I think age has something to do with that. You know, because like you said, people can tell you you're every day that you shouldn't be doing something. And I got those conversations. I got cornered in rooms and was spoken to about stuff and didn't matter. You know, I'm doing it. I'm fine. I'm in control.
Yeah, that's it, man.
I got it. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it's you know, you enough people talk to you about it. You're like, okay, well, you know what? I'll fucking show you. You know, right. I'm like, oh, you tell me not to do that. All right, well, I'm gonna have 3 more.
I'm gonna do it twice, right?
You know, I mean, and but yeah, man, you know, you wake up one day and you're like, wow, oh, that hurt a lot more today than it used to. You know, right. And you know, but it's you know, it's a some days that light switch just goes off, man, and that's it. And you know, I know when. Like I said, I know for me, I knew when I meant it, man, was I just kept going. I was like, I've gone I hit my 6-month marker being sober, and I was like, well, let's see what 7 months brings. The next thing I know, I was a year sober, and I was like, right. Well, I'll fucking goddamn be, you know, right. I made it a year, you know.
So once you hit that year, is it like, oh, God, I need to, you know? I mean,
well, I think for me, it was by the time I hit my year marker, I was so. Didn't even face me that it was my 1 year sober anniversary. You know, I was like, oh, you know, all my friends are calling, hey man, congratulations. Like, what do you mean congratulations? Yeah,
they paid attention.
Oh yeah, and they're like, hey man, we know that, you know, that day was your last day of drinking. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, yeah, you're right. And you know, I just got to a point with me that I was like, it didn't faze me anymore. You know, I was proud of that I went that long. But not drinking, and that, you know, the urge wasn't even there for me, you know, and I could watch all these people around me hammering beers and doing shots and being stupid. And here I am having a Red Bull. And,
it's fun.
Man, it didn't even faze me one bit, man, you know, and it's, you know, like, and again, I mean, you know, when I'm home from being on tour, you know, like how I would with the guys never in Vegas, you know, just jump on stage and start playing a song with them,
Right.
you know, stuff like that. You know, I'll do that. You know, I'll walk into a club or a bar, you know, with my friends, and the cover band that's playing is like, oh, you know, why don't you go play a Van Halen song with us? And I'm like,
right.
All right, man, cool. You know, let's go, you know, and, you know, and people are like, man, you know, shit, Tom, you actually like, you're fun to hang out with now. Before you were just like an animal. Like, you know, we actually
I guess I never saw that part. I saw the fun Tom. You know, the guy I got the jam with was awesome. And
yeah, man.
you know, typically it was and I'll blame Stu. You know, I was ripped, and I mean, the man just put drinks in front of me. I remember I was in Newport, and it was 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'm like, man, he had a show at like 8:00 or something, and there's no way I'm gonna make it. And he goes up to the bar and he comes back and he says, drink this. I'm like, what is it? He's like, just drink it.
Yeah, that's it. Legend. That man is a legend right there.
Yeah, and that's what kept me going that night. But yeah, they always got me up on stage to sing, and that was you know, so much fun.
I know. Oh yeah, you know. I mean, well, one of these times we'll have to get the band back together and do some you know, some Judas Priest or some Iron Maiden songs. You know,
absolutely.
Definitely.
All right.
But thanks for having me on here, dude. It's a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, it was really entertaining. Thanks for sharing your story, your secret backstory.
Yeah,
that's the title of the show. All right, Tom. Listen, have a good night. Enjoy your Sunday. Thanks for doing it again, and we'll see you. We'll see you on the interwebs.
Yeah, buddy. Be good. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy, man.
Be good.
Bye-bye.